Right now on Rock and Roll Grad School, we're telling ghost stories as we celebrate the release of the debut album from the Whitmore sisters. You may know of Bonnie and Eleanor Whitmore from their solo work and with groups like the Mastersons and Steve Earle and the Dukes. That's Rock and Roll Grad School, available right now wherever you get your podcasts, rockandrollgradschool.com.
Y is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
I don't know. I definitely think a mausoleum. Like I would like a tomb in Highgate.
I don't know. I can't decide if I want the type of some sort of edifice that people can throw themselves upon and wailing, or if I want some sort of Viking funeral.
Well, there's that. Yeah, I don't want the pyre. I mean, I do have the whole like cremation, spread my ashes, cool places thing I could be down with. But I also like the concept of, I don't necessarily want anyone to throw themselves on me, but I want the concept of like the above ground Highgate tomb where they could bury me with a bell in case I'm still alive. And then everyone would come drink wine and have picnics every weekend. Like they would have a party around me every weekend.
You're the new Oscar Wilde.
Yes, of course.
Gotcha.
I don't know why that would be a surprise to anyone.
It is not.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
My thing is always, I like the idea of spreading the ashes and sort of being part of nature and all of that. I just can't think of any place super cool that has such a direct correlation to me that I would want my ashes spread. You know what I'm saying?
You're not dying tomorrow, hopefully.
I know, but I'm just thinking like,
maybe we'll spread them at the professional office building.
Okay, that would be great. Like put it in the
foundation
or something.
You can work for all eternity.
I know.
But and that crazy show.
But it's like, oh, I want to be spread at this theater or something. Like, no, you don't. That's dirty. It's disgusting. It's covered in beer and sweat and stale cigarettes. And
most good theaters already have a resident ghost. So what if you like pop up there? And then it's kind of awkward because you're sharing the same space.
Yeah, and then you're second runner up, and nobody wants second runner up.
Like I don't want to be at like Blenheim Palace, although I'd love to live at Blenheim Palace. Because,
who wouldn't?
Right, there's already ghosts there.
Right.
Certainly not Hampton Court.
And then again, like, put some of your ashes at a sporting place or field, where it's like then you're put in with all the other idiots who get smuggled in there and spread on that. And it's not special enough. It's sort of like, I think we've talked about this before, the fact that Bob Weir had this dream that Jerry Garcia wanted his ashes spread along the Ganges River.
Yes.
Despite the fact that Jerry in his lifetime never once visited India or the Ganges.
Right.
And this is where I'm coming from. I don't want to have that where everyone's standing on a boat throwing up, being like, why the hell are we here? Like, this person didn't even like this or never went here.
Well, that's because that would just be cruel at that point to everyone, especially you.
Right. And what if they're just standing around being like, oh, he would have hated all of this. This is awful. Well, this is everything they didn't represent.
Those who would be charged with your burial or spreading wouldn't do that to you. I have confidence in your family that they wouldn't do that.
What I would like is my ashes placed in a little cup on a railing, and then one of the cats just walks by it and knocks it over and then stares as it falls into the water. That's what I want.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, like a little kitten to do it and make it adorable.
An adorable kitten. Well, and then the kitten could be like hanging off the edge.
Right.
Like hang in there as your ashes blow away.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I want my ashes knocked over by a kitten.
Okay.
You guys are all professional, more professional than us.
I know, man.
And this is a friend's setup. So I knew that he had a setup in his office, and so I asked him if we could steal his office for a little bit.
Nice.
That is wonderful. Well, thank him profusely on our behalf. How did both of you get into the sport? And Hayden, why don't you go first?
So I actually worked for Lucas's co-owner, Jared, at an escape room that he owned. And I go to school here in Tennessee, and to get in-state tuition, I needed a full-time job. And the best way that he could do that for me was to get me a full-time job working at the new Axe venue that he was opening up back in August of 2019. And so I was pretty much one of the first employees to work there, working for Lucas, just as an axe coach. I had never thrown an axe in my life before that. I really, wasn't an extreme desire of mine to throw an axe. It just, worked out, and quickly realized how much fun it was. But yeah.
And Lucas, did you grow up throwing butter knives and just work your way up to axes?
I actually, the first week that we put targets up, I was really excited to get them up and start throwing before we even had like our lanes and fencing and stuff. I put a target up, and I had bought a couple of axes and was throwing, and I couldn't get it to stick at all. And I was like, maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe this isn't the business that I want to get into now. I also owned an escape game, and that's how I knew Jared, and we had kind of fallen into this situation where we had some extra space at a venue that we were at, and it was something I wanted to give as a just kind of a test and see how it would work out. And I was very, very bad. Like, people always talk about, or I hear a lot of people talk about how, like, oh yeah, we used to go out in the woods and throw hatchets at trees, and I'm like, I never did that as a kid, so I had nothing to go off of when we started. But yeah, it takes a little while to kind of find a throw, and then it just kind of went from there. But no prior throwing experience as far as sharp things go, just like regular sports and things like that.
So compared to the escape room, who's drawn to axe throwing? I know I haven't done it, but I want to do it so bad. And
Heidi, once you go axe, you never go back.
I know.
Yeah,
you were so excited to use that.
I really was, yeah.
So for the our demographic is probably young adults, but we have everything. I mean, our league is probably from age. I mean, we have a youth league, so we're all the way from ages like 10 to 50s, 60s in our league. So really, axe throwing is a very broad sport. I mean, you'll see everything at a tournament, all ages, and everybody can compete, because there's no like strength factor necessarily or anything like that. It's definitely very open to anybody that wants to give it a try.
And it doesn't require like any certain weather requirements, especially being indoors. It doesn't require a specific location. Like you can do it anywhere, anytime. And again, like Lucas said, just any age, any gender, doesn't matter. Anybody can do it.
Does everyone bring their own axes if they're competing?
I'd say like 99.9%. Yeah, like maybe if somebody's like first time, maybe they don't have something. But even after a week or two, almost all of our league members will, find an axe that they like and want to have their own. And
there's, we started competing with just Ace Hardware carpenter's hatchets, and those cost, I don't know, $30. But then
no, I think they're like
$18. So, and then you get up into kind of the higher realm of that, and you can spend $100 on an axe, and then you get some custom handles too, and it can get a little more expensive. But yeah, there's it's one of the cheaper sports.
How important is the skill versus the product?
What do you mean by the product?
But like, if I bought these amazing like $5,000 axes,
oh, gotcha. Okay.
Would I be better? Or would I still be terrible but look cool?
I think there's definitely like a small amount that it helps with, just because like the cheaper, inexpensive axes don't have meet the maximum specs that you can have for competing. So having those slightly more expensive axes definitely can help you a little bit with the outcome of each throw. But as far as there's definitely a diminishing point of that. So after you get past the like $100 range, it's none of the additional money that you put towards your axe is really going to help you.
Okay.
Now, one of you had said that it's not necessarily strength that makes you a good thrower. What is it that you have to bring to be a good thrower, Hayden?
Yeah, it's definitely not strength. As a coach, I found pretty quickly the harder you throw, the harder it is to control where your axe is going to go. So honestly, a lot of people find the lighter that you can throw, the more control you have, the easier it is to aim. So a good light throw, a good smooth throw. You don't want to have any crazy movements. And some of the more important things are consistency. So making sure every single one of your throws is as similar as you can possibly make it. Another way of doing that is just to remove movement. So when I first started throwing, I was taking a step and I was throwing it like a baseball pitcher, basically, because that's, I used to play baseball and that's just what felt natural to me. But, just removing all of that movement, not stepping, starting right on the line, and just a nice, smooth, light throw is kind of the key to success in axe throwing.
Is there a particular other sport like that you kind of know if someone has experience in that other sport that they're going to be good? Like if you're, I don't know, a bowler, or is it really just based on the person?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit the person, but anyone that's had a sport that requires the same thing over and over again. So like if somebody that's really good at, say, free throws, for example, or really good at bowling. Bowling is the pins aren't moving. There's no defense. You can't control how the other person does, and that's very much axe throwing. It definitely helps because you need a routine. So every time you come back from the board, doing the same thing, holding the axe the exact same way every time, and trying to, like Hayden said, minimize the amount of movement. And to have the exact same throw every single time is really the goal. So there's small instances, like for example, what we throw is duels, or we throw everything, but duels is what we have competed in and won the world championship in 2020 and 2021. For that, we have to not only be consistent with our own throw, but we have to also, since we're throwing at the exact same time, timing is the most important thing. I mean, aiming is obviously important, but even if we both have really good aim, if our timing isn't right, then it's usually catastrophic.
Catastrophic how?
So since we're throwing the axes at the same time at the same target, if my axe gets there first, then his is going to hit into the back of mine. Or vice versa. If he's early, I'm going to hit the back of his, and then they're not going to stick. Whereas if they're both coming in at the same time, and even if they hit each other, they're going to bounce off each other and still stick. So that's the goal there, is to have that timing linked up so that we can still get points for both axes, even if they don't go exactly where we were aiming for. They're still going to stick in the board. We're not going to walk away with 0 points.
That's how do you practice for that? You must practice.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Like choreography.
Definitely at the beginning, we practiced a lot just to get that timing. I would say actually this last year was probably much less practice. When we first started and we knew that we had qualified to go to Worlds in 2020, we practiced pretty often. I mean, and it was easier when he was working there. So anytime he was on shift, if there wasn't something going on and I was there, we would throw a few throws and just kind of work on timing and stuff like that. But since then, since that year, we haven't thrown as much. But it's now it's one of those things where it's kind of like a muscle memory thing. We kind of know how each other throws, and so that makes it a lot easier.
That's awesome. How confident were you going into the Worlds? Did you know you were going to just take it?
Yeah, I'd say in 2020, not confident at all. I mean, we had thrown 3 tournaments together and placed pretty well, placed within top 2 both times, which was, a great achievement for both of us. But, these are tournaments that not everyone is going to. So a world championship is kind of, it's one of those things where there's 128 singles throwers and then you have 64 duels teams. So, the odds of being the winner they're not in your favor. And so we were confident in ourselves and our abilities, but the thought of getting to ESPN and winning on ESPN was not even really crossing our minds. We just kind of went to go throw as well as we could and compete and just enjoy the community while we were there. In 2021, after having a world championship already, definitely more confidence came along with that. But again, nothing is guaranteed. We were very hopeful that we would be able to at least make it to ESPN again, top 2. But, again, nothing's guaranteed, especially when in the tournament we lost our very first match of the tournament. And luckily, it being a double elimination bracket, we still had one life left and were able to not lose again at all, and made a run through the B bracket, having to play, I think it was 11 matches just to get back to the finals on ESPN, and then win that one as well.
What are the other teams like? Do they have nicknames?
Yeah.
Is there a Russian team that's just really intense?
So unfortunately, since Hayden and I have both been throwing, we haven't really, because of COVID and things, there haven't been as many people coming from outside of the United States. So there used to be a pretty good amount of throwers that would come from Canada. And then some from other countries and other parts of the world that would come and compete at Worlds. But unfortunately, some of those haven't been able to travel as much. Some of the Canadian throwers did make it to Worlds this year. But as far as teams, there are a lot of really good teams. A lot of the top throwers throw together for duels. And yeah, every team has a team name or a nickname of sorts. And usually they are a mix of their names or just something funny that they like to have. Sometimes
Usually
they're a little
like an axe pun, something with the word axe in it.
Either an axe pun or something inappropriate. Is
Like, I see you baby shaking that axe. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one that checked in on both of those.
It did. That's our.
We've been doing this show too long. Yeah, exactly.
Don't let anyone have it.
Actually, in 2020, we had to change our name the night before the ESPN because they didn't want certain things, because ESPN is owned by Disney and Disney has certain requirements, and it wasn't anything super crazy. We wear Crocs when we throw.
Kind of ironically.
Yeah, mostly as a joke, because he was wearing them one day and I was like, dude, I have black Crocs too. I'm going to wear mine next time. And
I think I got made fun of for them that league night, and in spite, I wore them every time after that. And then,
and then he was wearing them so often, I just wore mine. And so our team name was the Croc Blockers.
Oh, that's good.
So that's nice.
That was our team name, but that wasn't going to fly for ESPN.
Yeah, the mouse won't like that.
We had to change it, and I think we went with Crocs with socks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so then we were wearing kind of funny socks with it too. And so we were Crocs with socks for a while, and then there was a situation on TV where both of our last names were used for our team name. So we are now known as Brown Johnson.
Wow,
that's
so
amazing.
That one is
and they can't even say no to that.
Yeah,
that's our name.
So yeah, that's our the name that was gifted to us
by the gods.
And so that's what we've been going with.
That's awesome. And
so yeah, it's been interesting. As far as the confidence thing, to touch back on that, I think we had the confidence that we would be able to win some matches, but there are so many good teams now. Just in the last year, I mean, so many people have gotten better at axe throwing that it's kind of crazy to think that, to even assume that we would be able to make it that far. And so after we lost the first game, I mean, I went to Hayden and I was like, do we care? Like, do we have a chance to even? And he was like, I mean, we're already here. We should try. And I was like, okay. So I mean, I was goofing off and making jokes, mostly because I was disappointed that we had lost. But during the next couple of games, I was being annoying to Hayden because I was just goofing off too much. And but it kind of worked out because I think it helped us relax. And
I mean,
go on a good
yeah,
run.
those were some of the best matches that we had like ever thrown. I think in competition were the ones where we were just kind of goofing around. I mean, obviously still trying to win, but again, I think we were just kind of preparing for the worst.
Yeah, we were trying to take it as lightly as possible so that it wasn't as disappointing when we lost.
Right.
And so we were just in a really relaxed state until we realized, like, oh, we only need like
getting pretty close.
2 more wins, I think, or one. I think at one point we thought we only needed 1 more win, and then we were like, oh crap, we have 2
There's
more.
1 more. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a really fun experience this year, more so than 2021, just because I remember more of it, and losing that first game is usually a death sentence as far as winning the whole thing. I mean, you can usually make a pretty good run, but very rare to lose your first game and make it all the way through.
How did you? I cannot imagine the night before a big match like that being told you have to alter something that is so connected to your team and your, for lack of a better term, brand. To say nothing of the fact that suddenly you're wearing socks. that seems like a lot of curveballs.
So,
and
that was not the curveball that we got in 2020.
True.
The curveball that we got in 2020 was that they changed the rules about 15 minutes before we started throwing on ESPN.
Oh, that's not fair. I mean, maybe it is because it worked out for you, but
so originally they had planned and had told everybody they were changing the rules for Hatchet, and I guess subsequently Big X, but they had never mentioned anything about doing it for duels, and I don't know that they had mentioned it for Big X. But the day of the morning of, like, we've already practiced, sat down in our area, and they're like, "Hey, did they tell you?" And one of the other throwers came up to us, and we were like, "Tell us what? What are you talking about?" And he was like, "They're gonna leave the new target up for duels." And I was like, "Oh, that's fine. Like, they're gonna leave it up, but still score it the old way."
right.
And they were like, "No, they're gonna score it with the new rules." And I was like, I don't know what to do with that information.
Yeah, it changed everything because, you know, the old bullseye was, you know, how big, like.
Oh yeah, so the change was it went from a 3.5-inch bullseye to a 1.5-inch bullseye.
Oh geez.
So I mean, we're talking like we could pretty consistently hit both of our axes in the bullseye without hitting each other, and was perfectly fine, to going to where like you can almost not fit both axes side by side in the same bullseye. And so we had, you know, maybe like 5 minutes to like get our axes and go practice.
Get your axes together.
Get off your axe, yeah.
So we got off our axes and got our axes, and and we talked about a couple of strategy things, and we were like, I don't know, like, should we just try to, like, one of us aim for the bullseye and one of us not aim for the bullseye and just try to make sure we get the points, or what should we do? And so that's kind of what we did in that match in 2020. We changed our strategy like last minute and tried to do things a little differently.
Yeah, that's crazy. Especially too, like you guys were saying before, that one of the things with the sport is like that it's for like people are good who are conditioned to doing the same thing and the repetitive, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, no, sorry, everything you know, it's different.
Yeah,
now.
it was a very interesting few minutes of like, what? They're gonna change it? Okay, I guess. I don't guess we have much to say. It was because of like ESPN, they didn't want to have to explain the rules multiple times, and so they just wanted to be consistent. And so it definitely made sense. It was just we were not prepared for that at all.
You see.
So do you feel, going to the Worlds now several times, do you still see that challenge? Like, what's the next challenge for you guys?
I think we both would love to have some. We both have not thrown well personally, so like
in singles.
Yeah, like just by ourselves. So I mean that's a challenge for me. Is I would love to be able to make it onto ESPN for multiple disciplines, if possible. I got very close at the U.S. Open, which was also televised in Hatchet, and also Big Axe. I was 1 or 2 games away in both. But I have come up very short in Hatchet by myself the last 2 years after having decent success throughout the year, winning other tournaments and things. I just always seem to have a bad day. I actually pre-apologized to Hayden for how bad I was throwing this year before we even got to duels, because hatchet was in the morning, duels was that night, and so I texted him after I got knocked out of the hatchet tournament and was like, I want to pre-apologize for how duels is going to go because I'm not throwing well today. But that I think otherwise, I mean, it's still a big challenge to win. I mean, duels, one drop can really, like one collision, one accidental throw can really change everything in duels. And so it's still a big challenge and goal to try and make it, each time we compete, to try and make it back on ESPN and win.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely not perfect. We don't even really have a perfect game under our belt, in duels at least, because it's hard with a 1.5-inch bullseye. There's only so much room,
Right.
and but so I mean, obviously there's still lots and lots of room to improve. I foresee some rule changes coming up next year too. But there's never a point where it's like, oh, okay, two's enough. Like we don't need to try anymore. It's always, we're very, very competitive, and so we're never gonna stop, trying to do the best that we can, and the results are the results, and if we're just throwing our best, then we can't really control that. So.
For more information on the World Axe Throwing League, check out their website, worldaxethrowingleague.com. They are also on Facebook and Instagram at World Axe Throwing League. Lucas Johnson is on Instagram at Lucas Johnson. And if you want to throw where the pros throw, check out Lucas's own axe throwing venue, the Murfreesboro Axe Throwing. They are online at Murfreesboro, Murfeesboro axe.com. They are also on Instagram at Murfreesboro Axe.
You can check us out on all the various socials. Be sure to visit our website and don't forget to leave us a review.
Today's show is produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?